Hello, my name is Demonic Tutors. I'm here today to finally make a YouTube video to talk about Wall of Roots. With me, I have a very special guest, a level 3 judge, Daniel Lee. He's going to be talking in a minute, but first, I want to talk about the quality of life stuff. I'm qualified only to talk about the quality of life stuff. He will talk about the rule stuff that is above my head. First thing about Wall of Roots, and there's a lot going on this board, but just we'll explain it all later. It'll all come into play, everything that's on here. It'll all make sense. But actually, in making this Wall of Roots video, I discovered that it's also a chromatic sphere bug video too. Because chromatic sphere is bugged in the same way Wall of Roots is. But I'll have Daniel talk about that in a minute. But first, the quality of life. So, on Magic Online, you can pay 1 life, tap, tap, do all this crazy stuff, and then be like, oh, well, wait a minute, I need green, so you just undo, right? No big deal. No big deal. You can even do that with a Lion's Eye Diamond. Oh, I'll sack this for red. Oh, wait a minute, hold on. Undo. You could go, I want this mana, purple, green mana, whatever. Then tap for red, and then be like, oh, wait a minute, hold on. No. Undo. No big deal, right? Creatures, green, blue. No. Undo. Now, Wall of Roots. I floated 1 green mana. I will now add a mana with Wall of Roots. And now I'm locked in. And that green mana is not usable. Right? Like, I can't undo it. Like, every other thing, I can now undo this, I can undo that, but I cannot go back and mess with this 2 floating mana from this Wall of Roots. And so, I've heard a lot of people say, oh, well, it's not coded as a mana ability. But, I have a dampening matrix in play. Activate abilities of all artifacts and creatures can't be activated unless they're mana abilities. So, I could still activate the Wall of Roots. Right? I could still activate it, but I can't use my Yawgmoth. I could use my birds, but when I'm casting a spell, right? Like, watch this. So I go to cast this, it lights up, right? But I can only tap it, and the Birds of Paradise, when I click on the Birds of Paradise, I could do all this. I can't remove a counter. There's no way to remove a counter. Now, this is why I have level 3 judge Daniel Lee here, and he's going to explain from here. Would you take it away?
Yep. All right. So it's really interesting here. So when we're talking about steps of casting a spell, in particular spells like Chord of Calling, or we've also got an Eldritch Evolution here, there's a series of steps that you go through to cast a spell, and it looks like Magic Online is not handling this the same way that the comprehensive rules do, and the way that you would be able to do this in a paper game of Magic. A section of the rules 601.2 handles all the steps for casting a spell, and when you get down to 601.2G, that's where you have a window to activate mana abilities. As Ed has just shown here, the game does recognize that Wall of Roots is a mana ability, which is correct, and it also recognizes that, like, Birds of Paradise is a mana ability and things like that, but it's not giving you the window to use Wall of Roots ability when paying for things. Like, see, with him casting this Eldritch Evolution, he's got this window to activate mana abilities. Look, all of his lands lit up, both of his 2 sort of traditional mana ability creatures have lit up, but you can't add mana with the Wall of Roots, which you're supposed to be able to do. So the way that Magic Online handled this, because watch, if he taps his Overgrown Tombs for green mana right now, for, let's say, right, notice how up in the corner it is paying that mana immediately, and that is not how the game works in paper. In paper, you activate all of your mana abilities first, and then you pay all of your costs in whatever order you want to pay them. So you'd actually be able to add your mana with the Wall of Roots, add mana with lands, add mana with creatures, and then you actually pay the costs. So for something like for Eldritch Evolution, importantly, this means that you should be able to add that 5th counter to the wall, that 4 counter Wall of Roots, and also sacrifice it to the Eldritch Evolution. Because in 601.2G, you get this window to add the counter as a mana ability, And then in 601.2h, the very next step of casting a spell, you get to pay costs, such as, for Eldritch Evolution's case, sacrificing a creature. And that Wall of Roots is still on the battlefield. It's a 0/0, but it's still on the battlefield because it has not been killed due to state-based actions. The state-based actions aren't going to be checked until Eldritch Evolution is done being cast. So Magic Online is not handling this the same way that Paper Magic would. And in the same with a similar case of Court of Calling, the way that Convoke is treated by the game is it's treated as an alternate way of paying a cost. So again, 601.2g, you get a opportunity to add mana from mana abilities, and then 601.2h, you pay your costs. And that's where Convoke comes into play. So again, you should be able to add a counter to that Wall of Roots. It'll be a 0/0, but same deal with Eldritch Evolution, it won't actually die yet. And you can tap it to pay 1 mana for Court of Calling as well. So you should be able to get double duty out of that Wall of Roots before it dies.
I can't.
And clearly, Magic Online is not letting that happen.
It won't let me. I can remove a counter before I cast it, but then when I go to cast it, I can't do it.
Correct, yeah. And it's interesting because one of the things that we mentioned when we were prepping for this video was that Lion's Eye Diamond has this specific, if you do a zoom in on Lion's Eye Diamond there, it has this text of activate only as an instant. And that's kind of how the game is treating Wall of Roots here. It's like, it's kind of acting as though it has that text on it, even though it doesn't, and it's not supposed to. That was a specific bit of errata that they did to Lion's Eye Diamond to sort of make it not effectively just Black Lotus. But Wall of Roots doesn't have that and shouldn't have that. So it's so the game's not imitating Paper Magic in this way.
So I'm not crazy, and there is actually a Wall of Roots bug here.
Right, yeah. I don't know if this functionality is intended or not, because there's this long-standing thing of like Magic Online is not exactly Paper Magic in a lot of ways. Like chess clocks, for example, wouldn't work in Paper Magic for a lot of reasons.
Oh, I wish.
But yeah, I know, right? But in this case, I don't know. Yeah, so I'm not sure what's going on there, but it's definitely not working the same way that Paper Magic does in this particular case.
I've always felt that Yawgmoth is a lot better in Paper because you can get away with a lot of this stuff. It changes how you have to, as a Yawgmoth player, it changes how you have to plan, because you can't, once this wall gets to this, it becomes effectively just 1 mana as opposed to 1 mana plus a body, which is what it should be.
Right, exactly. And especially when it comes to, like, if you have a Wall of Roots and 2 lands, you should be able to cast Eldritch Evolution to get a Yawgmoth at that point. Like, that's a thing that you're supposed to be able to do with this deck, and on Magic Online just won't let you.
That has cost me so many games. I can't even... And you want to talk a little bit about Chromatic Sphere?
Right. So one of the things that was interesting is, Chromatic Sphere is kind of a famous case of a weird mana ability. So the rule that governs mana abilities is... where is it? 605.1a defines what a mana ability is, and it says that a mana ability is any activated ability that doesn't have a target, that could add mana when it resolves, and isn't the loyalty ability of a planeswalker. So Chromatic Sphere ticks all those boxes. It doesn't target, it adds mana, and it's not a loyalty ability. So Chromatic Sphere is a mana ability, which means it should be usable during that window when announcing a spell. And as we saw earlier, when you were went to go cast a spell, it did not give you the option to activate Chromatic Sphere. So, like, see how Chromatic Sphere doesn't even light up there. So, one of the things that was interesting about this, and one of the reasons I brought it up to include in the video, was that when you activate Chromatic Sphere, you draw a card. And that's kind of a weird thing to do in the middle of casting a spell. And there's actually a specific rule, 121.8, that governs this and says if you draw a card during the casting of a spell, you actually leave it face down. You don't get to see what the card is until you're done casting the spell. So it was an interesting include, because it falls in that same thing of Wall of Roots, where if you activate it at this time that the rules say you do get a chance to do so, you actually don't. Something kind of weird happens. So it was interesting to me that it also that these kind of weird mana abilities are ones that Magic Online just doesn't want to handle the way that the comprehensive rules do in paper.
Well, thank you for explaining this in a way that I never could. How'd you learn so much about these rules?
So I've been a judge for a really long time, but if any of your viewers are interested in like learning more about the rules or learning how to run tournaments properly or want to become a judge, then the place they should start is judgeacademy.com. It's the current place where we host all the resources and everything. Um, and there's a link on there to our Judge Academy Discord server where it's just a whole bunch of judges from all over the world talking about rules stuff all the time. It's a pretty cool place.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad that you guys are out there sorting through all this mess because I would. I just know the simple version of I should be able to do this and I can't and I'm sad, but I do appreciate that you guys are out there knowing the official reason and everything. And I want to thank you for being here and helping me with this. And if anyone is interested about learning more about the Judge Academy, there'll be a link in the description. And thank you, Daniel Lee, for being here. And
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And I hope this explains what's going on with wall roots and without knowing. Also, chromatic sphere. Have a wonderful day. Thank you very much.